Tyler Seguin has been one of the backbones of a Stars team that was recently 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup victory, but the Stars are lucky as he essentially fell right into their laps. Seguin was drafted 2nd overall in 2010 by an already loaded Bruins team. They were able to acquire that pick thanks to the Kessel deal with Toronto. Seguin looked to be a promising player. Coming out of juniors, he was fresh off an 106-point season with the Plymouth Whalers and was at one point even projected as the #1 overall pick. In his rookie season, Tyler would produce 22 points in 74 games, and headed into the 2011 playoffs, he would be a healthy scratch. It wasn't until the Eastern Conference Final when Seguin would finally see some ice time, and he took full advantage of it, scoring a goal and an assist in his first game, and then another 4 points in the following matchup. Seguin's impact was felt for the remainder of the playoffs as the Bruins would win the Cup, defeating Vancouver in 7 games. The following season, Seguin would continue where he left off, as he would explode for a 67-point season, becoming the team leader in goals and points. It looked as if Seguin was going to become one of the Bruins' brightest stars, but rumors began to surface that eventually damaged his reputation. Reports stated that Seguin lived a, quote, party lifestyle, and this worried Bruins management. After the 2013 lockout-shortened season, Bruins general manager Peter Chiarelli would trade the young star to Dallas for Louis Eriksson, Riley Smith, Matt Fraser, and Joe Morrow. Louis Eriksson was always consistent, and Smith looked like a promising star of his own, but trading away one of your team's most promising players is always a gamble. This one failed to pay off. Eriksson would begin to decline as the years went on, and Seguin would further excel in Dallas, forming chemistry with Jamie Benn, becoming a yearly 70 to 80 point producer. Tyler Seguin isn't the only player who was given up on too soon, and Boston wasn't the only team to make this mistake, as they've actually had a great track record in fleecing teams, a record that dates as far back as 1976. After trading for Phil Esposito 9 months prior, the Rangers would contact the Bruins again on another potential offer, this time featuring Esposito's former longtime line mate Ken Hodge. New York hoped to pair the two together again, rekindling the chemistry they once had with one another. The Rangers would send a young Rick Middleton the other way to Boston, and Middleton looked extremely promising. On a New York Rangers team filled with many veterans, Middleton was still able to stand out offensively, but New York feared his lack of defensive awareness is what could eventually hurt both him and the team. On May 26, 1976, the deal would be complete, sending Middleton to Boston for Hodge and yet another mega deal between the clubs. Hodge would last a little over a year with the Rangers after the deal was made. He would record 62 points in the 76-77 season for the Rangers, but would only play in 18 games the following season. He'd record just 6 points in those 18 games before suddenly hanging up the skates at the age of 33. As for Middleton, however, he showed New York that they made a huge mistake. His first year in Boston was considered average, as he would once again be in his usual 40 to 50 point range. But in the 77-78 season, as Hodge was set to retire, Middleton would have his best season yet, producing 60 points in 79 games, and then producing 86 points the following season in 71 games. Middleton would soon become a consistent 30, 40, and even 50 goal scorer soon after. In the 80-81 season, he would record his first 100-point season, and then 3 years later would hit the plateau once more. Middleton would finish his NHL career in 1988, retiring at the age of 34. In 881 games with the Bruins, he would finish with 402 goals, 496 assists, and 898 total points, also adding a Lady Bing to his name.
Ladies and gentlemen, Quebec Nordique's first round selection. Welcome till Quebec, Sundin.
Matt Sundin would make history in 1989, becoming the first European player to be selected first overall, and he would definitely live up to that hype. In his 4 years in Quebec, Sundin would showcase his offensive prowess. He would record 59 points in his rookie season and would back that up with a 76-point season a year later. Sundin was on a very young Nordiques team who was looking to acquire pieces to build for the future. Sundin took full advantage of this, and in the 92-93 season, he would produce 114 points in 80 games, setting a career high in both goals and assists that would last for the remainder of his career. Just one problem. Although Sundin was having massive success, he wasn't one of those pieces the Nordiques were willing to hold on to. In fact, many in the front office considered Sundin the odd man out in their blossoming center core. After the end of the 93-94 season, the Nordiques would send Sundin to Toronto in exchange for Wendell Clark. Clark would play with Quebec for the entirety of the 94-95 shortened season, but when the Nordiques became the Avalanche the following year, Clark got in a contract dispute with the team and would be traded just 1 year after the swap to the Islanders in a three-way deal. As for Sundin, well, he's mostly known more so as a Leaf for a reason. Once arriving at Toronto, Sundin was already impressing. In his first season, he would lead the team in scoring and would eventually go on to become the franchise leader in goals with 420 and in points with 984 in 981 games as a Maple Leaf. Later in his tenure, he would be able to play with a special line mate. That line mate would be none other than Wendell Clark, as Toronto would reacquire him in 1996. The former captain will forever go down as one of the best to ever don the blue and white, and definitely wasn't the odd man out in Toronto. June 6, 1986 is a significant date for numerous reasons. One, it was Bruins legend Cam Neely's 21st birthday, and it also was the day when the Canucks gifted the Bruins legend to Boston. Yeah, Neely was traded on his birthday. Despite scoring 51 goals in his rookie season as an 18-year-old, Canucks head coach Tom Wyatt stated Neely's development had plateaued and that he was tradable due to his lack of defensive awareness. But Neely begs to differ. He's quoted as stating, quote, "I was behind Stan Smeel and Tony Tonti, so I didn't see a lot of ice time. Luckily for him, once arriving in Boston, he got plenty of ice time." The trade would send Neely and the 3rd overall pick in the 1987 draft to the Boston Bruins in exchange for Barry Peterson. The Bruins would also use that pick to select Glenn Wesley, who would last 2 decades in the NHL, and Peterson would last 4 years in Vancouver, producing back-to-back 70-plus point seasons before drastically falling off. Neely, however, the main focus of this trade, transformed into one of the best power forwards in league history. Neely would become a 4-time All-Star, reached a 50-goal plateau 3 more times, and would later be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, finishing his unfortunately short career with 694 points in 726 games. Neely would sadly face long-term effects of a knee injury sustained by Penguins D-man Ulf Samuelsson. He was never able to fully recover, resulting in Cam hanging up the skates at the age of 30. Nonetheless, Neely's rise to dominance is one of the best to look back on, as he proved his development was far from over. Now, we just talked about how Vancouver completely lost the previous trade, so let's flip it around and look at a trade they were able to win. Marcus Naslund was drafted by the Penguins in the 1991 draft, but didn't play for the team until 1993, and believe it or not, Naslund would actually struggle to maintain a spot on the roster early on. He would get called down to the IHL on multiple occasions throughout the 93-94 season, resulting in finishing his rookie season with only 11 points in 71 games. Marcus would be a healthy scratch come playoff time, and the same cycle repeated itself the next season as he would only play 14 games during the lockout shortened year. With Naslund bouncing up and down the NHL and IHL, he was struggling to become consistent. He would earn the nickname Mr. September, but not for a good reason. This nickname was given as Naslund would show immense promise all throughout training camp, yet seemed to fade out come the regular season. At the 1996 deadline, Pittsburgh called it quits with Naslund, sending him to the Canucks for Alex Stojanov, and this would soon become one of the most lopsided deals in NHL history. Stojanov would only appear in 45 games with the Pens over a span of 2 seasons, recording just 2 goals and 4 helpers along the way. As for Naslund, well, the man they once called Mr. September was showing he wasn't just a threat at training camp. Naslund would slowly become one of the most productive Canucks on the roster. He would score between 40 to 60 points for the next 4 seasons before being named the captain of the Canucks at the start of the 2000-2001 season. Afterwards, Marcus would be placed on a line with Todd Bertuzzi and Brendan Morrison, and the line they called the West Coast Express would absolutely dominate the league. This would lead to Naslund producing a 75, 90, and even an 104 point season, solidifying himself as one of the best Canucks of all time. Naslund would finish his time in Vancouver, recording 346 goals and 756 points, playing in over 800 games with the club. The Canucks committed highway robbery, but believe it or not, they may not have made the most lopsided deal in today's video. We may have saved the best story for last, as the story of Chris Draper is both shocking and extremely odd to look back on. Chris Draper is known as the $1 man, and this is because in 1993, after just playing 20 games with the Winnipeg Jets in a span of 4 seasons, Draper would get traded to Detroit in exchange for $1 whole. The Jets gave up on Draper, borderline insulting him along the way, and Draper would show the Jets just how foolish they were, as once arriving in Detroit, he would play a valuable role early on. Draper would be placed on the infamous grind line, and this allowed him to become a key contributor in the face-off circle, while his line mates Malpe and Koser would do all the dirty work. Draper didn't really break out on the score sheet until the early 2000s, when he would become a consistent 30 to 40 point producer, even winning a Selke trophy in 2004, proving his defensive awareness was just as strong as his offensive abilities. Draper is only one of 7 Red Wings to have played over 1,000 games with the club, and his impact to the team helped the Wings win 4 Stanley Cups in 97, 98, 2002, and 2008. He would hang up the skates, recording 158 goals and 361 points, playing in 1,137 games. Draper's story shows that you should never judge a book by its cover. No matter how hard a rookie may be struggling, it's never too late to give them one more chance to succeed, as all it takes is one judgment, assumption, or even $1 to accidentally trade away a future star for next to nothing in return.